Several artists in the late Quattrocento started incorporating traits of the new architecture into their works and combining classical environments with themes from Christian mythology, while new painting techniques advanced and made use of Brunelleschi's pioneering work with perspective. The painting Brera Madonna by Piero della Francesca depicts a sacred conversation of Virgin Mary and the Child, along with a group of angels and saints, taking place inside a temple-like classical building. From the temple's shell-shaped apse, right above the Virgin's head, hangs what appears to be an egg or a pearl. The egg would be a symbol of creation, whereas the pearl, as it is created by the shell without male intervention, could be a symbol of the Immaculate Conception. Next, we see the slightly later painting Delivery of the Keys by Pietro Perugino, where the scene depicting Jesus giving the keys to heaven to Apostle Peter takes place in front of an octagonal temple flanked by two triumphal arches that resemble the Arch of Constantine in Rome. A similar centrally planned building reappears in a later painting by Perugino, The Marriage of the Virgin. Three different paintings of the 1480s, all of them known as the Ideal City, depict three different interpretations of the city's character. The Ideal City of Urbino, variously attributed to Piero della Francesca, Luciano Laurana, or others, has a strongly civic and cosmic character, symbolized by a magnificent rotunda standing right at the center of the view, as if marking a fictional epicenter of the perceived humanist cosmos. The rotunda is flanked by several different buildings, four large palazzo-style buildings towards the front, and smaller, more vernacular buildings towards the back, while on the rear side one may notice a basilica quite similar to Alberti's works. Two fountains in the foreground are a symbol of health, cleanliness, and prosperity. The Ideal City of Baltimore, variously attributed to Fra Carnevale or Francisco di Giorgio Martini, symbolizes military power, as suggested by the fact that it is centered on a triumphal arch. The open space behind the arch is flanked by two ancient structures, on the left an amphitheater strongly resembling the Colosseum, and on the right an octagonal building resembling the Baptistery of Florence, which was thought to have originally been a temple of the god of war, Mars. The recessed space in the foreground is centered on a fountain, a sign of proper sanitation and healthy living. Four Corinthian columns surrounding the fountain are topped by personifications of four different virtues: justice, moderation, liberality, and courage. The space is flanked by two buildings in a contemporary palazzo style, and several other buildings of similar architecture occupy the background. The central axis, passing through the triumphal arch, continues along a road, eventually reaching a towered building, which could be some kind of fortress. An important aspect of this painting is that it includes human figures engaging in various everyday activities, which helps someone realize the enormous scale of this urban space. The third painting, The Ideal City of Berlin, possibly made by Francesco di Giorgio Martini, depicts a port city, thus it presents the aspect of economical activity. The central view of the painting peers through a classical loggia, straight towards the sea, where someone can see some large ships and a cluster of islands, and it is quite remarkable that instead of being centered on a building like the other two paintings, this one's view is instead lost towards the horizon. As in the other two paintings, the view is flanked by several buildings on the left and right, of which the ones closer to the viewpoint are in the palazzo style, while those towards the background are older. One in the far back left looking like a fortress, possibly a reference to that time's fear of invaders from the sea. During the same period, the architect Filarete envisioned the ideal city of Sforcinda, whose walls would be shaped like an eight-pointed star to achieve celestial harmony, a sign of his own personal interest with magic and astrology. Each of the outer angles of the star would be occupied by a tower, while the inner angles would be occupied by a gate. A system of avenues starting from the gates would pass through a market square each, and converge radially into a large civic square at the center of the star. Since at the time water was considered an important medium for transporting goods, and the canal city was seen as ideal, Filarete incorporated a system of canals into the street system that would connect the city to the outside world. He also designed several concepts for buildings, one of them being an allegorical building that he called the House of Vice and Virtue, which would be composed of 10 floors, starting from a brothel at the base and ending with an academy at the top. The famous artist and polymath Leonardo da Vinci also made some designs for an ideal city of his own that would incorporate sewers, canals for navigation, large public spaces, and passages for merchants at different levels, and multi-story buildings for housing, a style of city building strikingly similar to many cities of today. Leonardo also made several architectural concepts, some of them depicting churches that he designed in a centralized manner, like in Greek cross or octagonal plans. Many of his floor plans show a very intricate subdivision of its lateral chapel into smaller apses, creating a kind of fractal effect. These small sketches by Leonardo foreshadow the developments in Renaissance architecture that would take place in Rome during the 16th century.